If you keep feeling distant from the people you love, it's not because you've lost the connection, it's because you've been burying the words that could save it. There are truths sitting in your chest right now that no one has ever heard. They don't shout for attention. They don't crash against the walls of your mind, demanding release. Instead, they sink quietly, heavily into the softest parts of you, pressing down until they feel like they've always belonged there. And yet, in the early hours of the morning, when the world is still and you're alone with your thoughts, you can feel them waiting. Maybe you've told yourself you're protecting someone by keeping them in. Maybe you've convinced yourself they don't matter, that you'll eventually move on, that silence is the noble choice. But silence, in its own way, can become a wound that never stops bleeding. You know this already because you've felt it. The quiet ache that lives in the gap between what you feel and what you say. The distance it creates between you and the people you love, even when they are right there in the same room. The way it makes your smile just a little tighter, your laugh just a little shorter, your eyes just a little dimmer, and the longer it goes on, the easier with it is to tell yourself that this is simply life now, a quiet erosion of your own voice. Sometimes it's not even the big, dramatic truths you keep hidden. Sometimes it's the smallest things, that you miss someone even though you said you didn't, that you're hurt by a joke they made even though you laughed along, that you're tired of always being the strong one even though you're praised for it. Little silences like these pile up, and you carry them as if they are light, until one day you realize with emphases you are no longer standing quite as tall as you used to. The truth is, unspoken words don't disappear just because you swallow them. They don't dissolve in the dark. They live in you. They change the shape of your days. They influence the way you touch, the way you trust, the way you hope. They sit beneath your conversations, quietly shaping what with you are willing to share. And the people around you, they may not know the details, but they can feel the distance. They can sense the way your warmth flickers at the edges, the way your gaze sometimes drifts away when they ask, "Are you okay?" You've probably told yourself, it's better this way. Better to keep the peace, better to avoid the conflict, better to be misunderstood than to risk being unloved. But here's the thing, the peace you're protecting isn't really peace. It's the absence of noise. Yes, but it's also the absence of truth. And there is no real intimacy without truth. We grow up learning that speaking up is dangerous. Maybe in your childhood, honesty came with consequences, sharp words, closed doors, or punishments you didn't deserve. Maybe in your first heartbreak, your vulnerability was used as a weapon. Maybe someone you loved once took your truth and walked away, leaving you to wonder if silence is safer. And so, without even realizing it, you've built a life inside invisible walls. The people in your world can see you, can even touch you, but they can't reach the center of you, because that center is protected, not by joy, not by trust, but by fear. Fear is clever. It will tell you it's keeping you safe, but what it's really doing is keeping you small. When you hold back what matters, you deny others the chance to truly know you. You rob yourself of the chance to be loved for who you really are, not just for the version of you that feels easiest to accept. And over time, that denial becomes a kind of slow breaking, not the shattering of glass, but the gradual cracking of stone. The kind of breaking you barely notice until you feel something in you crumbling, and you can't quite name what the width it is. Sometimes, the silence you keep is about the present, the things you wish you could say to your partner, your friend, your family. Other times, it's about the past, the things you wish you could have said when it mattered, but didn't. Those past words often carry the heaviest weight, because they come with the ache of knowing you can't go back. And so you replay them in your mind, not as sentences spoken, but as ghosts, fragments of what you should have said that haunt you in the quietest hours. You might think you've moved on from them. You've built a life, you've filled your days with noise, you've told yourself that the past doesn't matter anymore. But sometimes, All it takes is a familiar smell, a song you haven't heard in years, or a quiet moment alone, and the memory comes rushing back, along with the weight of those unsaid words, and suddenly, you are there again, back in that moment, back in that silence, feeling the same ache you thought you'd buried. This is the secret no one tells you. Silence is not neutral. It shapes you. It shapes your relationships. It shapes the way you carry yourself through the world. When you hold something in, you're not just keeping it from others, you're keeping it from yourself. Because to speak it aloud is to acknowledge it fully, and as long as it remains unsaid, you can pretend it's smaller than with it is. You can pretend with you are stronger than you feel, but deep down, you know, there are conversations you're afraid to start, not because you don't know what to say, but because you know once you say it, nothing will be the same. There are truths you're afraid to admit, not because you can't handle them, but because you fear others can't. And so, you hold them, you keep them tucked away. But here's what I need you to understand. The things you never say are not disappearing. They are living inside you, asking for space, asking for breath. And the longer you keep them in, the more they demand to be heard in other ways, through your stress, your restlessness, your inability to fully relax around the people you love. You have spent so much time trying not to break the fragile balance of your life that you haven't noticed how much it's already breaking you. The distance between you and the people you love is not because you don't care, it's because the deepest parts of with you are still locked away, and you can't be fully loved until you are fully seen. You may not notice it at first, but silence changes the way you move through the world. It makes you cautious, even when you think you're being open. It makes you measure your words, even when you laugh. It makes you wear a smile you don't always feel, because you've learned to hide the parts of you that might be too much. Over time, that carefulness becomes second nature, so much so that you forget it's not the way you were meant to live. You were not born guarded. You were born with a voice that cried when you were hungry, laughed when you were joyful, and reached for connection without fear. But somewhere along the way, you learned that truth can be dangerous, that certain feelings should be tucked away, that there are parts of you that are better kept in the shadows, where no one can judge them or use them against you. The world may have praised you for your composure, for your strength, for the way you never seem to cause trouble, but inside, you know that's not strength, that's survival. The cost of this kind of survival isn't always loud, it's quiet. It shows up when you're in the middle of a conversation and someone touches on a subject that's too close to what you're hiding, and you feel yourself pull away. It shows up when someone tells you they love you, but a small voice inside wonders, would they still love me if they knew everything? It shows up in the way you sometimes feel like an outsider in your own life, present in the moment, but never fully in it. You tell yourself it's fine, that you've learned to live with it, that some truths just don't need to be spoken. But the softly truth is that it always finds a way out. If it's not through words, it's through the way you hold your body, the way your eyes drop when someone looks at you too closely, the way your energy shifts when certain topics surface, and the people who love you, they feel it. Even if they can't name it, they feel the barrier. With emphasis, the part no one talks about. When you keep too much inside, it doesn't just affect you, it affects them. Because your silence doesn't only protect you, it distances them. It keeps them from walking into the deepest rooms of your heart. It makes them feel like guests in your life, never fully invited in. And if they've never been in those rooms, they can't help you clean them, can't help you carry what's inside them, can't share the weight with you. You might think you're sparing them pain, but the truth is, you might be sparing them the opportunity to love you in a way you've never known before. Because love, real love, is not built in the easy moments. It's forged in the hard ones, the messy, unguarded, trembling moments where you dare to say, here I am, this is me, all of me. When you deny someone that chance, you're not just holding back words, you're holding back intimacy. And here's the thing, intimacy isn't just about romance. It's about connection in every form, with friends, with family, with anyone who wants to truly know you. But you can't have intimacy without risk, and you can't have deep connection without truth. Every relationship you have is shaped by what with you are willing to share. If you only ever show the polished version of yourself, you will only ever have polished connections. And polished connections may look beautiful on the surface, but they crack easily under pressure. You've probably had relationships end without fully understanding why. Maybe you told yourself it was because you grew apart, or because they changed, or because it just wasn't meant to be. But maybe, and you showed up physically, you gave what you could, but you never handed over the map to your inner world. You never gave them the keys to the doors that mattered most. And without that access, no one can truly stay. It's not your fault.
You learned to protect yourself for a reason. Some of the things you've kept inside were never safe to share in the past. Some of the people you've known were not ready to handle the truth of you, and so you adapted, as all humans do, to protect what was fragile. But here's the question you have to ask yourself now. Are you still protecting yourself from people who aren't here anymore?
The patterns you built for survival don't know the difference between the wrong people and the right ones. If you don't challenge them, they'll keep you silent even when it's safe to speak. They'll keep you guarded even when you're standing in front of someone who has proven they won't run. And that's how silence becomes a habit that feels like safety, but is actually a slow form of self-abandonment. You abandon yourself every time you say, "It doesn't matter," when it does. You abandon yourself every time you say, "I'm fine," when you're not. You abandon yourself every time you choose comfort over truth, thinking they are the same thing. They are not. Comfort is the illusion of peace. Truth is the foundation of it. And here's the hardest part to admit. Your silence doesn't just protect you from being hurt. It also protects you from being healed, because healing requires exposure. It requires light. It requires that the thing festering inside you finally meets air. And yes, that is terrifying. But with it is also the only way wounds close for good. Walls don't appear overnight. They're built quietly, brick by brick, moment by moment, in the places you softly feel most vulnerable. One person mocks your tears and a brick is laid. Another walks away after you open your heart, and another brick slides into place. Years later, the wall is high enough that even you have forgotten what the world looks like without it. And because you've lived behind it for so long, you've mistaken it for the structure of your life, not realizing that it's actually a cage. The things you never say are the mortar that holds these walls together. Every withheld truth, every buried hurt, every "I'm fine" that wasn't true, they all strengthen the structure. They make it feel more permanent. And the longer you keep them inside, the harder it becomes to imagine living without them. You don't just start to fear breaking the wall, you start to fear what's outside of it. Inside the wall, you can control what people see. You can curate your expressions, choose your words, hide your weak spots. It feels safer that way. Predictable, managed, contained. But safety isn't the same as freedom. Because here's what no one tells you. Walls don't just keep pain out, they keep joy out. Too, they keep you from the deep, soul-shaking laughter that comes from letting someone see all of you. They keep you from the kind of closeness where silence is comfortable because it's filled with trust, not fear. They keep you from love that is unpolished and raw but real. Sometimes, you don't even realize how much you've lost until you catch a glimpse of it. A friend shares a truth so personal that the air in the room changes, and you see the relief on their face, and you realize you can't remember the last time you felt that light. Or you watch someone fall apart in the arms of someone who stays, and it makes you wonder if you've spent too much time bracing for abandonment to ever let yourself collapse. Silence has a way of convincing you that you're protecting yourself from disappointment, but in reality, you're protecting yourself from the possibility that you might be surprised by love, because not every truth drives people away. Sometimes it draws them closer. Sometimes it becomes the moment they see you for the first time, not the version you've been performing, but you. Here's the subtle danger. The longer you keep things in, the more they twist. A small hurt, left unspoken, turns into resentment. A fear, left unacknowledged, turns into avoidance. A longing, left unmet, turns into belief that you never deserved it in the first place. And these twisted truths begin to shape your choices. You decline invitations because you don't want to explain your mood. You avoid deep conversations because you don't want to be asked what's wrong. You choose partners or friends who don't look too closely because it's easier to be unseen than to risk being truly known. Your life becomes smaller without you realizing it. Not smaller in the obvious ways. You may still travel, work, laugh, socialize, but smaller in the ways that matter most. The parts of you that once stretched toward connection begin to curl inward. You learn to find comfort in distance, even while secretly craving closeness. And maybe that's the most painful part, craving a kind of love you're too afraid to let yourself receive. With emphasis, this is the quiet truth about the walls you've built. They are not just around you, they are inside you. They dictate how much of yourself you're willing to bring into a room. They whisper warnings every time you think about speaking up. They make you second guess whether your feelings are worth sharing, whether your needs are worth meeting, whether your story is worth hearing. And the tragedy is that these walls don't just keep others out, they keep you from yourself. Because there is a version of you that exists outside the walls, a version that is lighter, freer, braver, a version that doesn't flinch at the thought of being seen, a version that knows your truth will not destroy you, it will save you. That version is still there, it always has been. But it's been buried under years of not now, maybe later, it's not worth it, I'll be fine, with the are not fine. Not in the way you tell people, not in the way you convince yourself. You've been surviving, and survival is not the same as living. Survival keeps you breathing. Living lets you exhale. Here's the turning point, and maybe it's why you're here, reading this now. A part of you knows you can't keep carrying this. You've tried. You've made silence your shelter, but it's also become your burden. And there is a moment, for everyone, when the cost of staying silent becomes heavier than the cost of speaking up. Maybe that moment is now. The first step is not to speak everything all at once. You've carried these truths for so long that dropping them all at once would softly feel like ripping the roof off a house in the middle of a storm. No, the first step is to open a single window, to let in just enough air for you to remember what breathing feels like. This isn't about forcing yourself into conversations you're not ready for. It's about choosing one truth, small enough to hold, but heavy enough to matter, and letting it out. Maybe it's telling a friend, I've been feeling more alone than I let on. Maybe it's admitting to yourself, I still think about that moment, even though I said I was over it. Maybe it's writing a letter you don't send, just to give the words somewhere to live outside your body. Because once you speak even one softly truth, you begin to prove to yourself that the world doesn't end when you do. Healing is not about tearing down the entire wall in a single day. It's about loosening one brick at a time. It's about finding the courage to speak something small, surviving it, and realizing you can speak something bigger. Each time you do, you reclaim a little more of yourself, but you have to give yourself permission to be messy. Truth doesn't always come out perfectly. Sometimes your voice will shake. Sometimes the words won't make sense at first. Sometimes you'll have to try again. And that's okay. The goal isn't to be eloquent. The goal is to be real. The people who deserve your truth will understand that. They won't need it polished. They'll just need it honest. And yes, sometimes you will speak and someone will not respond the way you hope. They may not understand, or they may not be able to meet you where with you are. That will hurt, but it will not destroy you, because every time you speak your truth, you are not just talking to them, you are talking to yourself. You are saying, I am worth hearing. And when you start believing that, the responses of others lose their power to define you. The more you practice, the lighter you will feel. You'll notice it in the small ways first, the way your shoulders don't tense quite as much in certain conversations, the way your laughter feels less guarded, the way you stop rehearsing your words before you say them. And then one day, you will be in a moment of closeness with someone, and you'll realize that there is no gap between what you feel and what you say. You are there fully, completely, and they are there with you. This is what you've been longing for all along, not just to be loved, but to be loved as you are. And that only happens when you give people the chance to know you as, with you are, unedited, unfiltered, unhidden. You will not get it perfect. No one does. There will be days you go quiet again, days you hold back because the old fears return. That's okay. Healing is not a straight line, it's a spiral. You may pass the same point again, but each time you will be a little higher, a little freer. The key is to keep choosing softly, truth, even when it feels easier to choose silence, because the things you never say are breaking you, but the things you do say have the power to rebuild you, piece by piece, word by word, until one day
you look around and realize there are no walls left, only open space, and the people standing in it are there not because you performed for them, but because you let them see you, and in that space, you will breathe deeper than you have in years. If these words found you in the quiet place you've been keeping for too long, remember, you're not alone in this. There's someone out there who's ready to hear the truth of you. Let this be your sign to start speaking, even if it's just one small thing today. If this message touched you, I'd be honored if you liked this video and subscribe to Heartnest so we can keep walking this path toward a braver, more open, and more honest life together.